All right. What's up, guys? You know who it is. Marcus J. Jackson with another Live Life for you, okay? Forgive yourself, all right? Tonight I'm going to be talking about forgiving yourself or how to forgive yourself would be ideal. Um, National Suicide Awareness Month, National Suicide Prevention Month, whatever you prefer. Okay. Let me put the information in the comments for consultations, donations, as well as resources. If you are tuning in tonight, well, this morning rather, good morning to you. And you need someone to speak to, that's available right now, call 1-800-273-8255. That is the National Suicide Prevention Lifeline, right? They also have live chat available at National Suicide Prevention Lifeline. I'm sorry, suicidepreventionlifeline.org, that is. Live chat available. You can tap into the resources that they have available for those of us that might be dealing with suicide in one form or another. Um, if you are in danger of hurting yourself or someone else, please call 911. All right? We don't want you to hurt yourself. We want to get you some help out there immediately. All right? Um, do that right now. Don't wait. Go ahead and get you some help immediately. Um, let's see what else. If you want to talk to me, I'm available from 12 a.m. to 2 a.m. Every night. You can call me at 469-626-7486. I am available to talk right after this video up until 2 a.m. If you call me afterwards, um, please leave me a message, all right? Because during the day, I'm a realtor, all right? I'm also a life coach, and I'm always on the phone. So leave me a message or shoot me a text message. I guarantee you I will return your call, okay? Um, National Suicide Prevention and Awareness Month. Um, as you know, if you've been following my videos, one of my buddies that I spent some time in the Army with decided to take his own life because he could not figure out how to be a Christian and a homosexual at the same time. That became so overwhelming for him that he decided to take his own life. And, I know that was a heavy blow for me, so I definitely know that was a heavy blow to his family. So shout out to them. Much love and positive energy to you guys. That kind of sparked the idea of doing the whole suicide awareness and suicide prevention here, at this time of night. So I don't know. There's a lot of that going on, especially our younger people are taking themselves out at a very, very high rate, and I just feel like we all have a part to play in suicide prevention in some way, shape, form, or fashion. If nothing else, just call and check on people that are near and dear to you. Just say, hey, I was giving you a call. I was thinking about you. I love you, and I just wanted to check on you. I don't think that would hurt anybody. Is there something you want to talk about? Is just, I don't know. I don't know. I know there's something. I know that there's something we can do, to help, with this. And of course, I also understand that you can't be with somebody 24/7. And if they're going to commit suicide, they're going to commit suicide. I totally get that and that aspect of it. But keep in mind that, you never know. You might make that phone call or you might make that connection where they will decide to stay on this side as opposed to transitioning to the other side of life, okay? With that being said, let's go ahead and center ourselves, bring ourselves back to the present. A lot of times we are bogged down with things of the past, which causes depression, and we are worried about things in the future that have not even happened yet, which causes anxiety. And where we would be the strongest version of ourselves, would to be right here in the present. Okay, so let's bring ourselves back to the present. Take a deep breath. Blow it out. Take a deep breath. Blow it out. One more time. Take a deep breath. Blow it out. All right. Okay. So, there's a couple things I want to, a couple of fun facts I want to share with you real quick um, about forgiveness. And indirectly about forgiveness, because a lot of people tend to seek suicide, or they have suicidal thoughts based off of shame and guilt. That shame and guilt leads to worry, and that worry leads to depression or anxiety about, like I said, things of the past that you haven't let go of, or things of the future you're anxious about, and they haven't even happened yet. But a lot of times people talk about that, but they never really talk about what brings you to that point. What is it that you're ashamed about? What is it that you feel guilty about? And then not only what, but why and how did you get to the point of feeling guilty, right? So I wanted to talk a little bit about shame and guilt first, but the origin of that comes from fear, which actually vibrates higher than shame and guilt, right? Because fear on the physical level also keeps you alive, right? If you're afraid, your fight or flight kicks in and you will run or you will stand and fight. But guilt and shame are some of the most low vibrations that you could possibly possess. And I want you to understand that a lot of times we are guilty or we feel shame about some things that happened to us as a child. A lot of traumatic events and childhood situations have caused us to hold on to this baggage, to hold on to this heavy, burdensome stuff, if you will. And we drag it through the rest of our lives, never really coming out of that shame, or never really coming out of that guilt complex. And to add to the childhood traumatic event, you also have the fear-based belief system attached to the guilt and the shame as well. So what happens is you experience this, this traumatic event. You go to, organized religions, that actually feed the fear, right? And feed the shame and feed the guilt on a more internal side, right? More internally is where your subconscious is going to be, your conscious and, your superconscious, which is your ability to think higher. Your superconscious is your intuition, like the gut feeling, the things that you subliminally feel or see. That's where your subconscious lies. And those are inner things, right? Which is why it vibrates higher to be fearful on the physical side. But when you have the traumatic event coupled with the shame and guilt and the fear-based belief system to back it, you actually create like this circle of depression, this circle of anxiety that just continues and continues, and that chain is never broken, right? You feel shame and guilt, and then when you go to your religious organization, every week you are excited. You go through a series of emotional ups and downs, because you're there under the pretense of you feeling good because you are relieved of the shame and guilt temporarily. And you hear a good message, you hear a good word, if you will, based on your belief system, which causes you to be fearful, shameful, and guilty because you're sinning when you do things that do not follow the belief system, right? So the things that happen to you, that somebody did to you, like the child molestation, the sexual assault, sexual violence that was placed upon you, or the domestic violence, or the verbal abuse, or the physical abuse that you took, right, didn't follow the belief system. But that's okay, because you're internalizing that, never releasing it, right? So therefore, the person or the attacker or the abuser gets away with it. They live not in the turmoil that you lived in, right? But that's okay, because it's all right, because you are not letting it go. You're not releasing it, right? And you can release it. You can buy. You don't necessarily have to come out public with it, or whatever the case may be for you. Whatever satisfies you in that particular moment. But at some point, you're going to have to release that, and the best way to release these things is talking about it, right? And in talking about it, it's a prerequisite for you to forgive yourself. But some people choose not to, and they get over it just as well. But it's very, very difficult when you have a fear-based belief system that continues to play on your emotions and tap into those lower vibrational frequencies, such as shame and guilt, because now the cycle continues, because you go through the week and you feel ashamed and you feel guilty because you didn't go to church that Sunday. So your whole week, you already form in your mind that the whole week is going to be garbage because you didn't go to church, or you didn't receive that blessing, or just being in the church made you feel good, and now you don't have that feel good to last you throughout the week until the next time you go, or whatever kind of organization you subscribe, not necessarily your church, but whatever organization you subscribe to that is fear-based, brings these types of feelings, and brings these types of lower vibrational frequencies. Okay, give me just a second. Let me get my tea going. So this is a very, very informal platform. There's not a lot of formality. Like, you may even see me get up and walk away from here and go get some water, or something, or do something totally out of the ordinary, like cough or sneeze, or have to blow my nose, because I do detoxes, and I drink detox tea some days, and my body detoxes, so the congestion runs out, and I don't want to stop the video or stop the live and go blow my nose or something, But anyway, just like now, allergies are kicking in. I don't know why. It's so weird. So, anyway, let me sip this real quick. Give me just a second, I'm sorry. Okay, so the the biggest reason a lot of times we think suicide is the only alternative in our life is that we feel like we've done something wrong, or we've done something that is unforgivable, or we've done something that is quote unquote an abomination to God, or we have turned our back on God, right? And because the the message has been preached to us that we are to follow a God, or follow an infinite, I'm sorry, a deity or energy outside of us, right? We are detached from ourselves. We detach from our own power and will and concentration or things of ourselves to do things on our own, right? But we've been taught to depend on an outside entity to do these things for us, or to control our mind, or leave our mind or our disposition to something or someone else, right? Therefore, we're not responsible, or we take no credit for what happens. We take no credit for what happens, good or bad, right? And we just accept whatever from this outside deity or outside entity, and we don't question. We dare not speak against this outside entity that ultimately doesn't really um, serve us in the knowledge of self. It doesn't bring us to a realization that we do not have to feel ashamed. It never pulls us out of that circle, right? Because once we get the emotional high from the things that happen in the organization, um, at the organizational meeting every Sunday or every Saturday, whenever you choose to partake. Um, once we get that emotional high, then we go back to our regular life that has the abuse, the physical abuse, the sexual violence, the verbal abuse, the manipulation, just just an overall not a good situation. Okay, so we never understand how to cope with that. We never get to the point where we can deal with these things, and that tends to lead us down the path of suicide, and people begin to take their life because they feel they're backed against the wall. They're overwhelmed. There's no way out for them. The whole "you're crazy" mental health is so taboo to talk about. And they do. They will take their own life because because of these things. And I just want to tonight talk about that, and provide a platform for people to listen, to how there's other alternatives, and things are not what they seem. um, Everybody has skeletons in the closet. Everybody has done something wrong, per se. Nobody's perfect. Nobody has lived a mistake-free life, right? And I feel like if a lot of leaders in the community would simply express that during these organizational meetings, um, you know, they would, the community would be in a better state. If they could just come to terms with themselves that, yeah, they have these, excuse me. All right. Um, if the community leaders, especially in these religious organizations, would just simply admit that, yeah, they've done some things wrong. They haven't been perfect all their life, and they don't necessarily have it all together, uh, which is the way they make it appear, and which causes people to, they become guilty. You turn what you would think are free people into an oppressed people because they are afraid of sin. They're afraid of all these misunderstood and misinterpreted lessons that we put in the Bible, right? I'm sorry, that we've interpreted from the Bible. Um, tonight I'm gonna let me touch on sin, right? Because people sin, or they're struggling, they're ashamed about sin, all right? They feel guilty because they've sinned, and the Bible says the wages of sin is death, and people are taking that literally. They're taking it as if, because they can't stop sinning, then they deserve to die, right? And death is so let me go with sin first, then I'll talk about what death is and what death isn't, okay? So sin is a term that was used for the archer, all right? The archer meaning the guy who did the bow and arrow, right? The army back in the day had archers, right? And they would pull back the bow, pull back the string on the bow with an arrow and shoot, the target. And during the competition, right? During the competition or during war, if they missed their mark, the judge or the general, the leader of the archers would yell, "Sin, sin, sin, you have sinned." So that means reload. Like he would say, "You have sinned, reload, reload." So that means you missed the mark. Or the attackers are all not dead. So you have sinned, right? So reload and shoot again, right? And they would say, "You have hit your mark." Or they would raise their hand and say, "You have hit your mark." Or they would raise their hand and say, "Sin," during the competitions, meaning that you missed the mark, you missed the target, you missed the bullseye, all right? So where we got the idea that sin was turning your back on on God or on Jesus or whatever belief system you subscribe to is beyond me, and that is really, it's just really beyond me. And I understand. I understand the capitalism, colonialism, and us just being colonized in order to forward an agenda. I understand that, but I think by force was, as if taking over land by force wasn't enough. They even took it a step further and was able to tap into our inside, by causing turmoil in our belief system, in our way of life. Original Americans on the country did not have a belief system. They had a way of life. They had a way of life in which they conducted themselves. But there was no belief system, if you will. There was no fear of an outside entity doing anything to them or doing anything for them. they understood that these things were aspects of themselves. So yeah, and that's another video. But sin is not it just doesn't mean that. um, if you, I want you to think for a minute about the story of Job. You know, when the so-called adversary came and told God, you know, let me put my hand on one of your servants, or and then he said, you know, what about Job? And you know, you saying I'm traveling to and fro, seeking whom I may devour, and so on and so forth. So, you know, God says, you know, have you considered my servant Job? You know, he's a faithful servant, blah, 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 blah. Then, you know, the adversary says, no, if you take away all the things that you've blessed him with, he will, you know, he will surely deny you or go against you in some way, right? Even in that story, out of the things that happened to Job, losing his family, losing his children, losing his crops and cattle and things of that nature, it says he, you know, he didn't, I don't know, they provide the idea that he didn't sin against God or turn his back against God through that all. You know, he didn't, you know, he didn't curse God. I think that's what it says. And even in that, it's not saying that he sinned. You know, even I would, if there were a picture of sin in that particular, if that was it, I mean, that would be it. If there was a picture of sin, that would be it. He would, the adversary would be telling God, you know, God, let me cause Job to sin, right? Let me cause him to sin. Let me cause him to do something wrong. You know, that would be the perfect time to use the word sin, right? But I don't know. It just it some, you know, and it might be a version of the Bible that says the word sin, you know, and through all this, Job did not sin against the Lord or sin against God or whatever. So, and there may be a version out there that I just don't know about that says those words. But if any, in any rate, you should be able to go back through any book and see that, you know, the adversary was finding someone to sin against God so he could, you know, cause them to repent or whatever. But you have to understand what the, you know, what the Bible was for before we make a decision to take our life based off what it actually says or based off what we think it says, right? And I know our perception is our reality. However, with education and the knowledge, right, there's research that supports what archers did. There's research, like you can find research on archery competitions, and you could, you know, you can find out what was said, what terms did they use, and there was no such thing. We didn't have a wrongdoing called sin that caused us to turn our back against some outside entity, right? It just didn't, it did not exist. This was something that was forced upon us. That school of thought was forced upon you, right? So because it was forced upon you, then you have these lower vibrational feelings about it, as such as guilt and shame, right? So I say to you, forgive yourself, all right? Forgive yourself, and do not take your own life because you think that the Bible is saying something and it's really not. I I would go to every length imaginable to research the information that I felt like was wrong about me, and especially when it comes to things of sin, right? Sinning is not what we think it is, people. It's just not. I'm sorry, yeah, but I'm not sorry. It is a completely misused, misunderstood concept. Um, and for that simple matter right there, it does not, there is a such thing as etymology, right? And that's the study of words. Before we ever existed, there was etymology, right? That's just what it is. Before we were birthed into the world, um, I would say this entire generation from this 100-year period, there is nobody that within this 100-year period, there's nobody that predates etymology. Etymology is the meaning of words. Like, and even before etymology, words had a meaning. Symbols have a meaning, right? Can the meaning change? Yes. But if we want to figure out what was going on in the Bible land at that particular time, we have to understand what they were talking about when they said the things that they said at that time, right? And it's very, very difficult to impart these things, these concepts, into a present time when we don't understand what they meant at that time, right? So it's real simple. It's real easy for us to, uh, you know, um, impart a meaning based on our interpretation, right? But it doesn't have to be an interpretation. Like, how come it can't be what it is? It's funny how when you talk to people that are in religious organizations, um, there is no exactness to what they say. Everything is based off their experience and what they heard someone else say. So it's hearsay, right? There is no concrete factual information that you can be given about some of these religious organizations or the belief system of some of these religious organizations, right? Um, and it's funny how everything else has an exactness. Like, you wouldn't go to a doctor and or a nurse and say they you wouldn't listen to them. I mean, you wouldn't even act right if they came to you with this big old syringe full of black stuff, right? And you're going to say, what is that? Oh, this is this is the medicine. Oh, am I going to have to take all that? Oh, I don't know. It's just medicine, and the doctor told me to give it to you. And you're going to say, no, isn't it like a dosage I'm supposed to take? Isn't it like a certain amount I'm supposed to take? Because I think syringe this big is a little too much. So are you going to accept the nurse saying, no, no, the doctor just said just pull some out and just give it to you, right? Don't measure it. No, don't do a dosage or nothing like that, right? Just give you the medicine, and you take it. No, you're going to want it measured. You're going to want the exact amount that you need to have according to your body weight, according to the prescription, and the whole. No, you're not just going to let them come in and bring this huge needle and stick it in your arm and just put whatever kind of medicine in you, right? That has an exactness. Medicine has an exactness, but you're not questioning that. So why not question? I mean, it's crazy because we'll question that, but we won't question something that patterns our entire life, what we base our entire living standards by. We won't question that, but we do feel like there's an exactness to medicine, which is something that affects our entire life, right? It's just weird that we don't. And math has an exactness. 2 plus 2 is 4. Right? That's the exact amount from 2 plus 2, unless something has changed. Right? 5 plus 5 is 10. So that has an exactness, and we don't have a question, about that. But when the exactness of the Bible is brought to you or brought up, then there's a, oh well, I don't think it means that, or um, no, that's not what that doesn't feel right with my spirit. And it's like, well, wait a minute. I mean, either the words in the Bible have a meaning or they don't. So and that's what I've discovered in my journey, that they have a meaning, and they had meaning prior to us reading the Bible and prior to us learning the language. Especially in this 100-year period. From here 100 years back. Um, I just I find it hard to believe that um, we're not, we as a people aren't further along with this, with these fear-based belief systems, but we are getting there because there are people waking up all over the world, and they're no longer subscribing to fear-based belief systems. They're slowly turning to the knowledge of self. They're beginning to understand that they are the universe, and they're beginning to understand that they are um, everything that they've been looking for, right? Um, they understand how powerful they are. They actually accept the fact that when the Bible says ye are gods or ye are little gods, right? We're starting to accept that. So, um, I don't know. I just feel strong about that. It's something that I'm very, very passionate about. Man, that's good. Um, and I just feel like more people should be speaking about these things. So I would invite you to forgive yourself, right? And the reason why, most importantly, is because you feel ashamed, we feel ashamed, and we feel guilty about what we think the Bible says, or what our beliefs of this outside entity is, right? Um, and our we think that our life is patterned after this fear-based belief system, and to deviate from it in any way, shape, form, or fashion causes us to believe that suicide is an alternative, right? And just like my buddy, he could not figure out how to live physically being a homosexual while going through the church hierarchy of Christianity, right? I can just imagine I can just imagine how he felt, the looks he would get, and the whisperers, and just the overall posture of people, right? And the way people are so quick to judge, and they always have a load of negativity that they want to pour out, whether it be directly or indirectly. And I can only imagine how he felt. I can just imagine. But and he decided to take his life because he felt like he was sinning, or he was going against God, or he was an abomination to God, because he felt some type of way about his sexual orientation. And it's very, very sad that we live in a world, that is, everybody backs this fear-based belief system. It's everything is fear-based. There's nothing high vibrational at all. There's no love, there's no peace, there's no joy. It's just nothing but fear-based, guilt, shame, stuff like that, that we, as we become knowledgeable, we can come out of, right? We can detach from that, and we can increase our ability to depend on ourselves, right? Live your life. Live the way that you want to live. Okay, not the way that we. Oh man, allergies are kicking in again. Ugh. Live your life, not the way that is prescribed by religious organizations for you to live your life. It's just not. Just imagine if everybody um, did every single thing that they were supposed to do, no mistake, no flaws, total perfection across the board, right? Nobody does anything wrong. Everybody just kind of goes along, putting on this happy face that everything is really okay, and it's not. You know what I'm saying? People have problems, people have issues, people have challenges to overcome, right? And it just doesn't seem right for us to um, treat each other in a manner of with guilt and shame, and that's not even um, that's not even what it is. Like it's totally misunderstood. It doesn't. There's concepts in the Bible that don't even mean what we think it means, but because we misunderstand it, it just um, I don't know. It's just beyond me, guys. It's just beyond me how we got to this point where people are constantly taking themselves out, and they feel like suicide is the only way out. And I just feel like we could do better. We can do better. I think we have a role. Everybody has a role in suicide prevention and awareness, and I so believe that. And I don't know if we could just accept people, but accepting people would have to lend. It would we would have to forgive ourselves in order to accept other people. And that's what my thing is tonight. Forgive yourself. Okay, there is no way um, you can move forward if you do not forgive yourself. You can't hold on to this baggage or to these events that were not your fault. Okay, if you were abused, physically abused, sexually abused, verbally abused, it was not your fault. It was something that you had to experience, right? You're not a victim of that. Okay, you're not a victim of that. You just had an experience. That was an experience that now you can move forward with, because now that you know you're not a victim, you can move into another step. That's another step forward in healing, right? So you want to heal from these past experiences, right? Because they did cause some trauma. That was traumatic, right? But the next step forward from that is healing. Okay, healing and um, becoming the strongest version of yourself. And the way to do that is you have to be compassionate with yourself, and you have to forgive yourself. All right. Um, Please, by any means, reach out to. Research. Reach out to me. I'll research a concept for you. I enjoy researching, and I will help you understand how these things have come to. I don't know how these things come to life. Basically, how it gets from you know um, how it gets from shame, guilt, and sin, and this living in fear, and how it gets to you wanting to take your life because of it. Sometimes it helps to talk to somebody, and I will gladly take the time to talk to you and try. I'm sorry, not try, but I'll gladly take the time to talk to you so that we can figure this out together. Like I said, I'm available until 2 o'clock tonight. After that, I will, I'll stay up and talk to you afterwards, but I will probably fall asleep on you. But always in the morning, call me back, or whenever, feel free to give me a call back. Um, I guarantee you that I will call you back. Shoot me a text message or leave me a voicemail, and I'll call you back. I've called some people before that left me a message, and I was glad. I was glad to be able to talk to them. And some have inboxed me as well. Some have emailed me as well. and I was, you know, they can tell you. But somehow they're not back on here, so like I never know if they're on here until after. But anyway, um, yeah, I do return my calls, I do return my emails, and I do return my inboxes. Okay, um, I'm gonna cut it. This will be my information for the night. I know I usually go for an hour, but I'm gonna stop here. You know, I feel like I've exhausted the information enough or the point enough. But you know, once again, forgive yourself, guys. Have compassion with yourself. Have compassion with yourself. You have that is your first step of healing is to forgive yourself, right? Um, you know, acknowledgement falls in there somewhere, and acceptance falls in there somewhere, but ultimately forgiving yourself is a part of that, right? Those the prerequisite of it all, you know, is forgiving yourself. You have to forgive yourself and accept the fact that, hey, it was an experience. Not You're not a victim. All right. These things were not your fault. It was just an experience you had, and now it is time to heal from that experience and live life to the fullest. All right. Y'all take it easy. Try not to do too much. Peace. Do, do.